Where to put your rut stand, guys. This is, I don't care if you're the beginning hunter who's never hunted the rut before. I don't care if you're a seasoned hunter who hunts the rut every year. There are places in which you should put your rut stand that we all can look at our property and probably agree on, or we would all have this spot, okay? And this spot is what I'm going to call the hub. And the hub can look obviously different on every property. But in order to understand where our hub is on our property, on our public land, we need to understand what the deer movement is. So I'm going to give you an example of a property that I hunt. This property lays out pretty long and skinny north and south. And on the western edge of this property is a lot of the bedding. And a lot of the bedding takes place over there, one, because there is some cover, and cover is great for bedding, but one thing we overlook is topographical change when it comes to bedding, okay? Those bucks like to have vantage points if at all possible. That vantage point might be topographical, it might be a ridge top, it might be the edge of timber looking out across the field of CRP, anything like that. So in this given case, it's more topographical than anything. We do have some cover. We do have an elevated spot where these bucks can bed up high. And in theory, if bucks do this, bed with the wind coming over their back and see everything off to the east so they can smell behind them and see in front of them. This is what's taking place on this property. All the bedding is off to the west. And in this given scenario, there's destination food off to the east. In my case, it is a food plot. In your case, it might be acorns, it might be red oaks, it might be the white oaks still, but probably not. It might be red oaks. You know, let's say you're up in the big woods and you don't have agriculture fields. It could be red oaks, it could be locust pods maybe, probably a little early in the year for that. But anyway, it could just be natural browse of a clear cut, okay? So that would be on the eastern portion. And if you're the private lane guy, maybe your food plot's laid this way. If I'm trying to hunt any given area between, you know, that westerly bedding, and that's what I would try to find here in this given scenario, with some sort of westerly bedding in a place they're moving off to the east, I would shove myself right in between. And that's your hub. That hub is going to be an area in which maybe it's 10 acres, maybe it's bigger, maybe it's smaller, but it's an area in which all these deer intersect going to and from the food to the bedding. Now, I understand we're not necessarily hunting a food to bed pattern right now, but those are the areas in which deer generally frequent, and guess where those bucks are going to be checking, because that's where they know the deer to be. They're going to be somewhere in that in-between area. So if anything else, when you're looking at a map, when you're looking at your property, or you think about how your property lays out, think about being in the hub. Be in the center of everything. I do this with trail cameras a lot of times. I'll put them in a given area, and yeah, there's a scrape there, but eventually scrapes just aren't the hot thing to hunt. But if I'm in that hub, it's still an intersecting point. We want to find that intersecting point on a given property, whether it's private land, whether it's public land, whether you have food plots, whether you're hunting hard mass, whether you're hunting clear cuts, anything like that. Look at these maps, take your best stab as to what you think these deer generally do, and deer will think the same way. In theory, these bucks should. That deer generally are making that travel route, you know, east to west, west to east, east to west, west to east, and we're hunting that hub in between. Eventually, this is a waiting game sometimes. We all like to jump from tree stand A to tree stand B and catch the deer off guard. This is a time in the year in which we could probably sit in that hub for 2, 4, 5, 7 days if you could stand sitting there that long and have luck. So just find that hub wherever it is on your property. Ideally between food and bedding, or maybe it's bedding and bedding in a perfect world, especially during the rut. Maybe there's scrapes in between. And if we can find some of those scrapes, especially in the pre-rut, that's another great place to put that tree stand within the hub. If within that hub there is a scrape, let's put that tree stand over that scrape. I'm not nearly as worried about scrapes in that first week in November, mostly because bucks check those scrapes to see what does are doing. And at that point, you know, it's not much of a change in time. It might only be 5 to 7 days, but bucks aren't checking scrapes as much because they're already with the does and actively breeding. So the scrapes aren't nearly as important in the first week of November. Nonetheless, they are important. So if there's already a scrape in that area, I'm not telling you to not hunt it. Like if it's the first week of November and you have a scrape within that hub, that's absolutely a place we should be putting our tree stands. One other little bonus spot that I'm going to give you guys to be hunting, especially pre-rut bucks, you know, where to put your pre-rut stand. And this could like change just from the first week of November to the first week of October, but maybe you're the guy that has a little time in late October. Let's call it October 23rd through October 31st. Fine, and some of you that follow my stuff have heard me talk about this, and there are times of the year in which we can hunt this location, this being one of them, the first scrape outside of the bedroom. Okay, and in this case, it could be the first scrape outside of doe bay. Okay, a lot of times it'll be buck bedding if we're hunting in that more predictable time of the year from food on a food to bed pattern. But in this given case, if there is a scrape right outside of the doe bedding, that means those does are hitting it, laying down their scent. And what that means is that these bucks are interested in coming to that scrape because they are searching for does. So a lot of times we talk about the first scrape outside of buck bedding. This is a time in which we could find the first scrape outside of doe bedding. And how do we know that? Well, without scouting, we don't. But you can look at a scrape and say, there's a beautiful thicket right there. There's a lot of cover right there. Chances are you're near one of the closer scrapes to the bed. So I guess if I had to give a couple pre-rut stand locations and even rutting a stand location, guys, find yourself the hub, find yourself the scrape in the pre-rut, and chances are you're going to have some luck when it comes to finding a mature buck in that time period.